Lots of political news afoot.
Oh, yeah.
Lots to talk about today, especially because we just got that budget passed.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Many things happening.
A lot of things over the past few days. And, one that seems sort of minor now, but I think is of a lot of importance.
Okay.
Is the lack of knowledge or just sheer incompetence of the people in this administration.
Yeah, a lot of it is really slipping under the radar, and it's our job to not let it.
Absolutely. We got to highlight this. We got to inform you about what is happening and what the character and knowledge of our bureaucrats is like.
Exactly, because they're bureaucrats. They're headed with running these massive government agencies.
Yeah,
especially in a huge country like the United States of America.
Taxpayer money, baby.
And we're constantly told we live in a meritocracy.
It's true.
They ought to know what they're talking about.
We live in a meritocracy, especially now the DEI is completely gone, right? That was the goal.
Yep.
Now the best of the best rise to the top and get the positions that they have worked for and that they deserve.
Yes.
We've got people that know what they're doing in charge of the government.
These are subject matter experts in their fields.
With that in mind, I think we can listen to one of my favorite political theorists, Kristi Noem.
Oh, yes. Truly a great mind.
Truly a great mind. Explain to us one of the most basic concepts in the American Constitution, but also just Western legal thought.
Yes.
So let's get right into it. She was just sharing her knowledge in front of the Senate committee.
So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right
let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
It's good. It's really good.
It's really that right there, that 5 seconds is just the administration, is it not? Mm-hmm.
She said, Kristi Noem, one of the top cops in the country, right? She runs one of the major law enforcement agencies in the federal government, couldn't explain one of the most basic and fundamental rights that citizens have against their government.
That's the head of the Gestapo right there.
Habeas corpus, very simply, is just the ability to challenge the reasons for your detention. But I think she legitimately thought that habeas corpus is the right of a president to remove people from the country.
Which it's just, how do you even get there? How do you even make that guess?
Why would
especially in this context? Why would Maggie Hassan? And I hate that it was Maggie Hassan that got this because she sucks. You know what I mean? But goddamn, is this a moment? Why would your opposition, be pressing you on something that would allow you to do the thing at hand?
Yeah.
That's in so much contention right now. Why would that be your first answer?
Yeah, I legitimately think it's just hot air up in her head.
Gotta be.
But also, why would someone create a Latin phrase to describe removing people from a country? The Latin phrases we have, like habeas corpus, are the foundational legal doctrines that date back to the Magna Carta in the 1200s.
That's some shit Stephen Miller would do. I can't even lie. That's some shit Stephen Miller would do to give himself legitimacy.
Yeah.
But just, man, an unexcusable lack of knowledge for the top cop.
Yeah.
Head of ICE.
This country is run by villains
Basically
and idiots.
The head of ICE. Because doesn't DHS oversee ICE?
Yes. ICE is a part of DHS. Department of Homeland Security. Pretty new department, by the way. 2003, after 9/11. ICE, also, of course, a new agency under that department. Evil people run that place.
Oh, my God. Yeah, what a cesspool.
Yeah.
Evil, dumb people.
Kristi Noem, genuinely stupid. Genuinely fucking stupid. Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. It's Thursday, May 22nd. We're coming at you with another episode.
Boy, do we have some news for you this episode. News that you may not even have seen yet by the time you listen.
Yeah, look, we always intended to talk about how stupid Kristi Noem is, but we had to slide that to the top of the episode because we have so much budget news to get through.
Originally, that was going to be meat. That was going to be segment type of news.
Yeah,
not anymore.
Towards the end of the episode, we'll also talk about Biden being very old.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing happening this week that we will get to. But of course, before we do all of that, if you want early access to all of our content, and if you want commercial-free content, that means never hearing any ads on this show, you got to go over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod.
You got to go check it out. You got to go check it out because it's only on patreon.com/headintheofficepod where you're going to get the Monday mandate and you're going to become a Thursday thought leader. And
shout out to everybody that checked out your boy on Fox 2 Detroit last night.
We are an official news podcast. We're pundits.
I've received
Jeremy is a pundit.
I was very happy to see Head in the Office podcast and underneath my name on an official news channel. I thought that was very fun.
The host of Roop Raj saying head in the office, like the words, like with his own mouth on there. That was a surreal moment for me watching.
And it's like that they got to. That's what it's called.
You know what I mean? That's what he does. He's a real journalist.
And so shout out to everyone that checked that out. I was on with Representative Mark Tisdale, a Michigan state representative,
which is
crazy. I just get put up again. This was my first time on like a kind of show like this. It wasn't really a debate. It's more like a discussion thing for like 7 minutes.
Your first time on broadcast television. Your first time, please be gentle. And they put you against a fucking state representative, an elected official.
A guy who does this for a living, right? Like, that was crazy. And look, I'm not gonna, you can go check it out yourself. It's posted and whatnot. I just thought it was really funny. We're talking about universal healthcare towards the end. And, I'm arguing for raising taxes on the rich to pay for healthcare for everybody else. And he says, well, how are you going to do it? And it's like, brother, that's your job. You're the politician.
Exactly.
I get paid to yap. You get paid with my money, by the way, Michigan State Rep, to do your job.
It's also just not lost on me. Nobody asks how we're going to pay for tax cuts for the rich. Nobody asks how we're going to pay for the extension of the Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
No one asks how we're going to pay for $1 trillion in military spending.
Exactly. Nobody asks how we're going to pay for all these deportations except like us.
Yeah.
But the moment you want to give people healthcare, it's ridiculous. But now he's your peer.
Oh, that's true. Me and Mark are friends.
We're equals.
We're buddies now. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like how, what was it? Supreme Court Justice should have stepped down too early. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said she used to like hang out with like Alito all the time or something.
They're friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm friends with the opposition now. They've been humanized in my eyes.
Well, 100%. Yeah. Now, how could I possibly attack them? That's my buddy. It's like Chuck Schumer talking about going to the Senate like gym and hanging with, I don't know, somebody he wouldn't name.
Yeah. What did he say? Like all of the assumptions fall away or something like that.
When you're on the treadmill and you're on mile 2.
Anyways, before we get into this episode, we of course are going to read our 5-star reviews.
We have to
every single week. We have none on Apple for today, which is very just disheartening.
It is.
Depressing even.
I'm saying.
But we do have 2 to read that were sent in, one from Instagram DMs, the other from into the Head in the Office email.
Exactly, because we democratize the review system, the reading of the review system. It's not just people who have an Apple device. Anybody can get in on this.
All right, so this first one here from Kono Guppy, they say, first of all, I would like to use my platform to condemn Hamas, political violence, and bad things because they're bad. Found the boys in 2023 on TikTok and started listening soon after. As the #1 geopolitical podcast, these guys only take W's unless they're getting destroyed by Supreme Leader Jaden Daniels. All right.
That's this motherfucker. That's crazy.
Hey, Jaden Daniels didn't go to the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear it. Currently broke, but plan to break the Friday freeloader chains and seize the Monday means of production soon. Long live Hiddo International. Keep up the great work.
Hell yeah, brother. Heavy on long live Hiddo International.
Huge.
Shit's wicked out there.
Huge.
This next review, 5 stars from Hoodie. First, I condemn Hamas and all political violence. What an incredible listen twice every week. Heavy on that.
Hell yeah.
Jeremy and Gage share political news with informed and insightful takes with a great amount of humor thrown in. As an Oklahoma resident trapped in a conservative Christian hellhole, these guys bring common sense back to the table and
brother.
are a fantastic face for American
I'm talking about kitchen table issues,
That's right, brother. Pocketbook issues. You know what I'm saying? Pod Save America, get out of the way. Young Turks, see ya, buddy. It was what the left media space needs desperately in these times of corny fascism. Good things are good, and this podcast is one of those things. I couldn't agree more.
Hell yeah. Now that I've been on news officially, I think our likelihood of ending up on Pod Save America has increased.
Oh, yeah.
Exponentially. Especially once we get Gage in front of Rupraj, it's over.
Hell yeah. The moment I get on there, you're going to watch our heads get big. Our heads get so bigger than the frame, really.
I'm trying to make it so my material interests change in such a way where I'm aligned with the bourgeoisie.
Of course.
Such that I advocate for them because I am them.
Well, I'm going on as the show presents a dichotomy of only Republicans and Democrats. As of now, I'm going on as
I was called a Democrat, which I felt like I didn't have the time to correct him
Exactly.
on.
I can be, well, actually, you see, I'm like more of a progressive, blah, blah, blah. But yeah. I will be presented as a Democrat, segment. But eventually, I'm trying to be presented as the conservative.
Absolutely.
Eventually, I want to argue for SALT deductions. I need the SALT deduction cap to get bigger.
Well, that's not even like a Republican. Some Democrats fuck with SALT deductions.
Rich Democrat. Yeah. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it later.
That's our reviews. If you want to leave a 5-star review, I would very much appreciate it. We would read it here on the show, of course. Follow us on all the socials. It's in the description. Join the Discord.
Yeah. That's a good place.
That'd be pretty sick. But it's time to get into the news. We got to talk about the budget.
Yeah, we really got one big, beautiful piece of news to talk about today.
It's one big, beautiful piece of news. It's really the top thing that happened. There were some other things that we'll talk about. that were obviously important, namely the TPS designations being withdrawn, which is like legitimately catastrophic for hundreds of thousands of people. But we might talk about that a little bit later. But the main thing this week is the budget, which is also catastrophic for millions of people. So I think we should just get right into it.
I think so too.
We got some Senate news later on, but let's start in the House of Representatives to give you an update on this evil, life-threatening bill. It passed in the House. That's the update.
Yeah, that's what happened this Thursday morning, wee into the hours of the morning. They've been doing late night sessions all week this week just to get the murder bill passed.
Well, and the thing about the late night sessions is there was one to in the Rules Committee, I think, to get it passed.
That started at 1 a.m.?
Scheduled it for 1 a.m. Yeah. Which is this is the Trump budget bill. You're not going to get away with doing it that early, because usually if they do it early, it's less coverage. You know what I mean? This is the news right now.
Oh yeah,
you're not why do it at 1 a.m.?
Exactly, and it's gonna get found out. Especially after the bill passes on the House floor, or should it pass, which it did pass, people are gonna read the bill.
Yeah.
It's asinine.
And now the really just I don't know. A sign of the times about all of this is that the vote was 215 to 214, right? Yeah. That's a one vote difference.
There were 2 Republicans, I believe, that straight up voted against it, and 1 Republican, the leader of the Freedom Caucus, that just voted present.
Yeah, and I think there was maybe 2 that weren't even there for the vote at all. So that's a one vote difference. If one person switches their vote, the bill fails to be 214 to 215. It doesn't happen. If Jerry Connolly had survived one more day.
Which that's news that has also happened between this episode and last episode.
If Jerry Connolly survived one more day, it could have tied, and I believe a tie is a fail in the House of Representatives. There's no tie-breaking mechanism. But more to that point, right? Not just Jerry Connolly, 2 other Democrats in the House of Representatives have died since the start of this session of Congress. If they had been alive, or if there had been people in their positions that, weren't so old, then we could have made this bill fail in this circumstance.
This session's been going for what, 6 months?
Yeah, since January, or I guess they get sworn in December.
Yeah, they start a little bit before it. That's not a lot of time. I feel like that's too little of time for 3 people to die, and that obviously rip.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Rest in peace. I'm not here to make fun of Jerry Connolly or the 2 other Democrats for dying, but I think it speaks broadly to our representatives are too old.
Yeah, I think it's such a perfect representation of the Democratic Party that the young firebrand AOC gets passed up for one of the most important positions while you have a minority party in government. And it instead goes to this guy who dies 5 months later.
Yeah.
Isn't that just the perfect encapsulation of where we're at with the Democratic Party right now?
The Democratic Party's strict adherence to seniority is literally killing them.
Oh my God! Yeah, the establishment is withering away in front of our eyes.
I don't know. The gap between us and the GOP is just getting bigger.
Yeah,
and it's not an election year.
Yeah, it's just, again, not going to sit here and dance on the graves or fresh corpses or anything like that. But holy shit, dog!
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Pair this with the Biden book that came out from Fake Yapper this past week. It's just come on.
There's a real thing there. There's a real critique to be made here about how the Democratic Party runs their shit and handles things.
Yeah. Now, of course, Democratic Party sucks, but this bill could have passed without the Democratic Party even engaging with anything that's going on, because it's budget reconciliation and because Republicans run both chambers of Congress, of course. So let's get into the meat of the bill precisely. We got a preliminary estimate from the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan group inside the government that's required to analyze how economic bills will impact Americans and the access to programs that they have. Now, this was produced on the version of the bill before it passed, so one version prior, but the effects are still broadly the same. The effects are worse in this new bill, to be clear, but the sort of overall analysis is still pretty much the same. We're reading PDFs on this episode.
We got to get real technical this episode, folks. This is budget news hour.
Yeah, rarely do I pull up the CBO's website and read a PDF. That's what I did to understand what was going on here.
Because it's very complicated, genuinely.
Yeah. So the preliminary analysis of the effects of the Republican budget from 2026 to 2034 includes the following: an increase in the federal deficit of $3.8 trillion, revised to $3.3 trillion over 10 years under the actual bill that was passed, but anywhere between $3 and $4 trillion. That's an increase to the deficit. Trillion with a T.
That's a lot of money.
where are my deficit hawks at?
Yeah.
I thought Republicans were supposed to care.
All I hear when Republicans are in the minority is, tax and spend Democrats, going crazy with your money, blowing up the national debt. We're going to die. They like to pull up the goddamn national debt clock. Your high school econ teacher, who's a Republican, loves to pull up the national debt clock and tell you that Joe Biden wants a command economy and bullshit. Like, where is that now?
Yeah, no, it's just completely out.
It's just completely out of the wayside, and Democrats don't want to stand on business and, like, say shit.
I think I might become a deficit hawk just for this purpose.
I might have to. Yeah,
because the Congressional Budget Office specifically attributed the increases in the federal deficit to the tax cuts that were made.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because we are cutting revenues by a lot in this bill, and we're cutting social spending as well, but it just can't keep up with the amount of taxes that we're cutting. So obviously the tax cuts are the reason that the deficit is going to increase by, at minimum, the conservative estimate, $3 trillion.
And it's like, it's not lost on me that, like, at least, like, broadly, when Democrats are deficit hawks, quote unquote, it's for, like, social programs. It's for, like, I don't know, the Inflation Reduction Act, expanding the child tax credit, bullshit like that, helping us get out of bad economic times. And when conservatives balloon the deficit, it's more money to rich people. It's Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Because it's not fair how much, I guess, like, moderate Democrats try and contend with conservatives as if they're principled.
Yeah. It's like, and there's such a dichotomy in this country.
Yeah.
Because Democrats can only ever pass bills that's like a 2% tax credit based on your household income, based on the number of kids you have, and it's like means tested to all hell,
Yep.
You know what I mean? But Republicans can pull up once they get a majority and pass the I'm going to kill you and your entire family act.
Yeah.
And that just sails through Congress. Like, it's fucking crazy to me, the point that we're at in this country, how it takes so much effort to pass anything good. But Republicans can come along and pass the most evil thing you can imagine with
genuinely destructive legislation that they can just push through the chamber because they have some of the slimmest margins in history.
Yeah.
Wild.
Because it's not just ballooning the deficit. Republicans also are cutting Medicaid, cutting federal subsidies to the Medicaid program by about $700 billion in this bill. And that number is likely bigger now because they pushed the changes back to 2026 rather than them starting at 2029. So those cuts are likely larger than $700 billion.
Yeah, work requirements start, like 3 years earlier now?
Yes.
Or I guess maybe 2 years earlier if you consider, like, the months that they were going to kick in. Like,
and that's the Chip Roy effect, baby.
That's the Chip Roy effect.
That's him.
He lobbied very hard for more people dying, more people being kicked off of health insurance. That's like his whole thing this whole fucking week.
Yeah. The bill also includes $300 billion less in federal spending for SNAP, or previously known as food stamps, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, and then $60 billion just about less in spending on net for all other purposes. That includes increases in outlays for defense, immigration enforcement, and homeland security, but those are offset by reductions in federal pensions, receipts from spectrum auctions, and changes in receipts and outlays associated with changes to emission regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. And then lastly, $80 billion in additional state spending on net, accounting for changes in state contributions to SNAP and Medicaid, and for state tax and spending policies necessary to finance additional spending, basically shifting the burden onto state government. And if you live in a red state, you know that that's going to go very poorly for the people that live under that government.
Yeah, that's fucked, actually. They don't like doing Medicaid in general. They're not going to like having to spend more money on Medicaid. In fact, a lot of these states refuse to expand Medicaid when I guess they were supposed to, or they could, a couple years back under the ACA.
Yeah, and demons like Chip Roy openly say, like, I don't want Texas to become an ACA expansion state.
Yeah.
Which is like, dog, that'll just help your people.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I also read a USA Today article that goes a little bit deeper in, like, the funding for immigration. It said the bill also includes $50 billion for a border wall, $45 billion for detention centers, $8 billion for immigration officers, and $14 billion for deportations.
Yeah.
$8 billion to hire more brown shirts.
Yeah, and to be clear, when I was saying $60 billion less, that's just spending on the whole went down at $60 billion. Keep note, government spends what, 6 trillion, 5, 6, 7 trillion every single year, like the total budget. The Republicans' goal was to cut that by 2 trillion. It went down 60 billion. And when I say like on the whole, that includes like everything else in the government's budget. But of course, there's increases for defense and immigration and stuff.
It's like 150 billion more for defense, with I think 20 billion earmarked for the Golden Dome, which is Trump's initiative to bring the Iron Dome back here.
Naturally.
But it's like, well, fuck, we need that for.
It's just like Republicans talk all this game about wanting to balance the budget. they cut Medicaid, they cut SNAP in an effort to balance the budget. But then they just take those dollars they cut and increase funding for like deportations and a military parade for Trump's birthday. It's like, nobody's serious.
And it's like the Golden Dome. You got to be fucking kidding me. The Golden Dome.
Shit's so stupid.
Like I guess it makes sense in Israel considering like what's going on. Obviously disagree with the Israeli government's actions, but like you can make an argument that the Iron Dome, I guess, makes sense as a defensive measure considering, sure, there are attacks. Is Canada and Mexico lobbing missiles at us?
Israel's the size of like Rhode Island.
Exactly. Like how are we going to do that like here?
Like the U.S., like geographically, the United States is enormous.
Yeah.
Like...
It's like half of North America.
Yeah, it's huge. Moreover, I want to quote this directly from the Congressional Budget Office's estimates here. It says CBO estimates that household resources would decrease by an amount equal to about 2% of income in the lowest decile or 10th of the income distribution in 2027 and 4% in 2033, mainly as a result of losses of in-kind transfers such as Medicaid and SNAP. By contrast, resources would increase by an amount equal to 4% for households in the highest decile in 2027 and 2% in 2033, mainly because of reductions in taxes that they owe. So explicitly, it's a wealth transfer.
It's literally just the poorest 10% of people will have to pay more, and the richest 10% of people, very rich people, have to pay less.
Yeah, and they do it by household resources, and I'm not sure entirely what household resources are composed of in their analysis, but basically what you get from this on the whole is the poorest people have less and the richest people get more. That is all it is. Like, explicitly, that's all that's happening.
I think there's also a provision within like this new bill. The bill is 1,100 pages, by the way. We still have, it passed this morning, we still have no idea, like, broadly what the, like, smaller things that are in it are. I feel like new things come out every hour. Yeah. Like, I've seen there is a reduction in the excise tax on tanning beds. So now you have to pay less sales tax or no sales tax for indoor tanning.
I learned because of our friends at Distill Social that there's no tax on silencers in the bill, like silencers for guns.
Why?
Which feels very like specifically for the NRA.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just, I mean, how much money are we getting in taxes from silencers anyway? I have no fucking idea, but like, why are we making it easier to get a goddamn silencer?
And it's like, I don't even want to say it's like virtue signaling, because it's like, it's not like it's a widely publicized thing.
It's love of the game. Love of the game.
It's strictly love of the game and love of lobbying money.
A love of like letting people die too, because like you're doing no good with the silencer.
Somebody you know said, no, absolutely, that's not for hunting. That's not. You don't need a silencer for home defense. Yeah. If anything, you need a silencer for home offense. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's just some representative said my NRA scorecard isn't as high as it needs to be. Let's get this in the bill, and then I can get that A+.
You're cutting taxes on silencers, the thing that killed Brian Thompson? Yeah. That's crazy.
Real as hell, brother. It's ridiculous,
I feel like that's some shit Alyssa Slotkin would say.
It's a salient point, though. It's a salient point. You know, I'll give props where props are due if that's what was actually happening. Man, it's... What the fuck is going on? I think there's also a provision that just completely eliminates the estate tax, which is...
That's for the rich.
I don't have an estate. I can tell you that much. I don't know a single person that has an estate. That's not for my tax bracket.
I got an apartment, brother.
I don't even own a home. I barely own a car.
Yeah, it's real bad out here. What else we got in this bill, though?
Oh, man. One of my favorite sleeper hits that I found out about just before recording, because like I said, news keeps coming out. There are student loan overhauls included in this budget bill.
Bad ones.
Bad ones.
When I saw the headlines about student loans, I was like, okay, maybe we're getting some right-wing economic populism on student loans because Joe Biden tried to do some pretty popular things on the issue. Yeah. I was wrong.
Yep.
This is explicitly like to hurt you.
Yeah, no, it's good. Specifically, the bill wants to eliminate subsidized federal student loans. Stafford loans are gone, baby. Stafford loans are just out.
Unsubsidized, brother, everyone's going to have crazy tax increase or crazy interest rates while they're in college.
Subsidized loans are the ones strictly where the government covers your interest while you're like actively in school and in like other very like niche circumstances,
and
right?
Keep in mind, interest is a sin.
Yes. Like usury is a sin. It is not allowed.
It's a sin. Like if we're going to be biblical about this, This is devilish behavior.
Absolutely, strictly. Satan has infiltrated the GOP in God's house. What can I say? CNBC reports that this could make loan balances at graduation 15% higher than they would have been. Brother, that's just like thousands of dollars that you are saddling people with in the middle of a debt crisis for no reason.
Yeah, it's just like the fuck you, buddy.
I would hate to be a high school graduate right now.
Yeah.
I would hate to be entering university.
Doc, I hate to have student loans on my name right now.
Exactly.
Like,
it's already burdensome.
Yeah.
It's already sitting there like, oh man, fuck, man, this isn't that great, but RIP to you guys taking them out. If you even qualify for federal loans too. Like that was like the point of getting federal loans is that you can get a portion of them subsidized to help you like not have to pay off an exuberant amount in the future. And also because they offer lower interest rates than private loans. Yeah. I swear to God, if budget 2 dropped, they would say we're actually raising public student loans to meet the private standards.
Yeah, and like student loans were initially invented in the 50s. And the argument was something along the lines of we need to do this for national defense. We need to get people college educated for the safety of the nation. You know what I mean? And that's why we poured a bunch of money into it. It's why we created student loans, and it's why we made them easy to pay back. This shit's out of control, brother.
Oh, it's so out of control that it's antithetical to student loans' original purpose. I feel like I know people who, if the CCP approached them, it said they would pay off their entire debt to become a state agent, they'd do it.
I mean, that might be me, brother.
I mean, I'd do it. That's a lot of money that they'd be giving me. I'm in debt. I'm in debt and I want to get out of it. This is what Dave Ramsey say. You know what I mean? You do anything you can to get out of debt right now and buy in cash. If I had that opportunity, I'd take it.
It'd be over.
But we're not done talking about student loan overhauls within this budget bill because now current federal student loan forgiveness options like kick in after about like 20 to 25 years on the high end. Like your public loan, student forgiveness, your other programs, whatever, if you're paying on time. Now, under the new GOP plan, some borrowers will have to wait 30 years before they're given a chance at forgiveness. Brother, that is a mortgage. You are taking out a mortgage to go to college.
Yeah, 30 years feels bad.
Yeah.
30 goddamn years?
20 years was already crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, what do you mean 20 years? What do you mean this shit doesn't pay off till I'm, like, what, 44?
Yeah, I think the average loan for the average student takes 20 years to pay off right now.
Yeah.
And you're telling me public forgiveness wouldn't kick in till 30? That's just making it so nobody ever gets it.
And it's like after 30 years, you've paid off your principal. You've paid off your principal and then some. Like there's absolutely no need, especially for the federal government to be collecting interest, especially interest like double what the initial principal was.
For the government to be committing a sin.
And that's the part that I'm worried about the most. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's the government sinning. That's what I'm worried about.
You're supposed to forgive your debts every 7 years. And they're not doing that. You know what I mean?
Heavy on that. And still on student loans, the bill gets rid of the unemployment deferment and economic hardship deferment. So now if you lose your job, is fuck you, buddy.
Man, all of this is under the pretext of like waste, fraud, and abuse. Who is abusing deferment programs?
Oh, see, you'd be surprised. I mean, it's all these kids abusing Stafford loans to get liberal gender studies degrees and working at college and then expecting the government to pay for it. Working at Starbucks.
We are just so far away from anything positive in this goddamn country.
Oh, nothing's real. Nothing's real. There's so many like things in this bill too, where it's just like the parliamentarian would have shot that down if it was the opposite of this bad thing and if it was a good thing under Biden. You know,
good things are hard to do, man.
Good things are really hard to do.
Speaking of a good thing not happening, the SALT taxes. Or the SALT deduction specifically is getting its cap raised. If you don't know, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty. People fall asleep when they hear this, but it's state and local tax deduction. I don't remember exactly when this was created, but there was a cap implemented under Trump's first term for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I believe is like a cost saving measure because SALT saves a lot of wealthy people a lot of money. But essentially what it is you can take a deduction on your taxes based on how much tax you paid to your state and local governments, essentially shifting the tax burden that you have over to the federal government from what you paid on your state and local taxes. Yeah. As you can imagine, because wealthy people pay more on their taxes for like property tax to their state and their localities, this is better for them. And not even necessarily like the top 1%, but just like wealthy households generally. They're raising the cap to $40,000 from $10,000, and the benefit phases out after you reach $500,000 in income. So very obviously just for wealthy households. And a lot of Democrats tend to fuck with this shit. Because
fucking annoying.
A lot of Democrat states have like a concentration of wealth and like wealthy households that benefit from this specifically.
But even so, like raising it from like 10,000 to 40,000, is just strictly to benefit like the top like 1%.
Yeah.
And like the SALT deduction like cap being high in general obviously only exists to help wealthy households, but it's annoying because it's just there to, I guess, subsidize rich people who complain about paying blue state taxes but love the things that blue states bring to them.
Yeah.
And that's why they stay there. It's the government subsidizing people to live in blue states who just want to bitch about it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the worst thing in the world.
It's a fucking freeloader deduction.
Exactly. And what was pissing me off about this like this week is that like there were two factions of like Republican holdouts that the news kept reporting on. It was the moderate Republicans and it was like Chip Roy and the insane just Nazi Republicans. Mm-hmm. Chip Roy wanted more people to die quicker by making Medicaid work requirements come sooner and I guess just kicking more people off Medicaid. Mm-hmm. And the moderate Republicans were saying that they didn't like what was happening with Medicaid, but also what they were really saying is that they wanted the SALT deduction to be increased above $40,000. Mm. It's interesting. It's really interesting that these like moderate Republicans didn't seem to vote against the bill that's really just increasing work requirements and not giving them the higher SALT deduction that they wanted, while they still complain and say that they were for Medicaid in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they just threw that on there to make it seem like they actually cared about something real.
They need to cover.
And not that they only cared about making their wealthiest residents proud.
Yeah, and like you can look it up yourself if you want. SALT deductions benefit mostly wealthy households. Like there was analyses that I was looking at and like the benefit in like percentage terms for like annual income was like 0% for the lowest quarter of earners.
Beautiful.
It doesn't make a difference because you have to pay a lot in taxes for this deduction to mean anything for you.
Yeah.
You also have to remember to like take the deduction, which if you're doing your taxes on your own, you might not. If you have an accountant, it's a lot easier to do this shit. But yeah, it's a tax break for like wealthy households.
And
that's
it's
all
like,
it is.
when it comes to like a lot of this tax stuff, I'm not an accountant. I'm going to say that straight up. I know a lot of there's like some gray area too on whether or not you can only take advantage of this if you itemize or if you just take the standard deduction.
Yeah.
That's like a whole other complicated thing. And it's like rich people itemize. It's just like, this sucks. Mm-hmm. It really just sucks, man. It's so annoying. But you know, on the bright side, this bill does expand the maximum child tax credit by making like the current $2,000 tax credit permanent and raising it to $2,500 through 2028. But I want to take a moment because much like SALT deductions, this shit is pissing me off too. A lot of the things that are good in this bill, for reasons that we've been talking about, are just like half good.
Yeah.
Like they're either half measures of what Democrats did or wanted to do, or they've got weird restrictions on them, or they don't really end up helping that much people in general.
Yeah, they're just minimal.
And their benefits are being massively overstated. And the child tax credit is one thing that is helping people. But it's not as good as Joe Biden's tax credit that conservatives tried really hard to kill in 2022.
Yeah, a policy that cut childhood poverty in half overnight, by the way.
And then when it went away, child poverty did what?
Increase
overnight, by the way. And like, if you remember, the Inflation Reduction Act expanded the tax credit from $2,000 to $3,000 for kids above 6 and $3,600 for kids below 6 years old. It also made the credit what's called, quote, fully refundable, which allowed poor families to take advantage of the full value of the credit, even if the like credited amount would exceed their tax bill. The current Trump expansion to tax credits does not do that.
Yeah.
It does not make it fully refundable. So Chris Cox, the director of federal tax policy with the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, Federal Fiscal Policy Division, told CNBC that making it not fully refundable is leaving out roughly 17 million children whose families don't make enough to have to pay federal income taxes.
Nice.
These 7 million children, the children whose families need the child tax credit the most, just do not get to take advantage of it because of how the GOP designed this bill. And they're going to tout this as a major win. I'm not going to say that this isn't a good thing for middle-class families who can take advantage of it, but it's not a good thing in the sense that it's like it's leaving the people who need it the most behind.
It could be far better.
It could be so much better.
The previous iteration of it was much better. We know how we can make it a lot better, but they don't want to do that because that would genuinely help a lot of people.
Exactly. And I guess where I'm getting at this is that like people will hear child tax credit and they'll think, okay, this is just like when Joe Biden did child tax credit, that was very popular. But it's not the same. It is fundamentally almost a different policy. It just goes kind of by the same name and has a little bit of the same base features attached to it. The other portion of Biden's tax credit that made it like immediately useful is the fact that it paid out in advance monthly.
Yes.
So people did not have to wait till tax season to get relief. They immediately saw that money in their bank accounts every month.
That
they
shit
didn't
was
have
sick.
to wait for a refund.
That shit was awesome.
That's gas.
Yeah.
And I think kids like up to like 17 years old counted in it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's true in Trump's version of the bill. So the people who, again, needed the tax credit the most immediately got the relief that they needed. That's not the case here.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like if the pro-family party, quote unquote, was serious about being pro-family, they would want to implement Biden's version of the tax credit.
Yes.
Because that was like genuinely one of the best policies we got out of the Biden era, and it was so short-lived.
So
partially because of Joe
helpful.
Manchin, but also every Republican.
Uh-huh.
So
And it's just that's the other angle of it. Yeah, every Republican killed the old child tax credit, and now they're gonna love talking about the benefits of the new tax credit.
yeah. So on the whole, this budget bill takes from the poor, gives to the rich, and it increases the federal deficit by several $1 trillion, something Republicans are supposed to care about.
Yeah.
It when we were talking about like the outline for this bill or even like the reconciliation framework that we got back in March, we said like it's going to be a handout to the rich and they're going to try to cut essential social programs. I didn't know how right we were about that because explicitly every analysis of this bill is exactly that.
And it's like the areas that they chose to penny pinch here is like crazy. Like, what do you mean you're coming after subsidized student loans? Like, never in my mind would that have like come up as like an option. Obviously, like maybe that's on me for thinking that like obviously the crucial social safety nets get cut first, but that's what they talk about the most. But like Stafford loans, really?
Stafford loan, yeah, we're going after Stafford loans. All the waste, fraud, and abuse in Stafford loans.
Exactly. All these kids just taking out loans to get an education and live in their college. Wow.
Yeah, it's like remarkably bad. And the deficit's going up anyway over the 10-year projection.
And it's just like, when we talk about money, we're talking about bread. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like we took the loaf from the plate of like poor people, left the crumbs behind, gave a slice to the middle class, and then just gave the rest of it to just rich people to just eat and take for granted.
Yeah. They're like throwing crumbs at us, and they're saying we should be grateful for this, and saying like, oh, the Republican Party has a reputation for giving tax breaks to the rich, but look, we're taking away taxes on overtime, which is an unnuanced way to say what the policy actually does. But it's like, yeah, it's fucking crumbs. Yeah. And on the whole, again, every analysis shows that people, the poorest people, middle-class people, working-class people, will lose money because of the cuts to things like Medicaid.
And you also have to consider just like the other policies going, tariffs.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how much you're taxing. When
nobody can factor in tariffs now.
The like conservative estimates when it came to like how much like people in like the middle or I guess like 60 to 80% income bracket will get was like $2,000. I think the conservative estimates when it came to tariffs were like $3,000 it's going to cost the average family.
Nice.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know it was something insane. Like, there's also that going on.
Yeah,
like,
we can't account for like the instability that Trump will cause in the future by slapping like 200% on some random country that we get goods from. Like, nobody can consider that.
Like, it all just sucks. And like the stuff that's supposed to not suck, the stuff that's getting touted as these like awesome wins, like sucks.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, maybe moderate even at best.
Yeah, the only like hope I can have is that because the the negative cuts of the bill are sort of pulled up to 2026, that people will realize that it's Republicans that took it from them.
Yeah.
It may be in time for midterms, right? Like maybe this will help, but like I don't know.
It's December 2026.
Oh, well, then not in time for midterms.
It's quite literally a month after the midterms.
Well, in time for when JD Vance is running for president.
Arguably it could be 2 weeks after the midterms is when these things kick in. So people will immediately just associate that with, Democrats won the midterms. Democrats did this. And it's everything is cynical, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And it's like I've seen there hasn't been a lot of discourse yet. The bill passed this morning. People are still trying to read the 1,100 pages of it and really understand what's going on. But I've seen analyses correctly pointing out like the problems with the no tax on tips policy. Because there's a lot of like weird fuckery going on with there that we'll dive into probably more on Monday when more information comes out. But the big one that we know is that like one, it's going to create like this sort of disparity between lower paid tipped workers and also just like lower paid retail workers, lower paid service workers like janitors and whatnot. It's kind of just like baking more unfairness into the tax code to like virtue signal. And look, like a win is a win is a win. I'm not going to like take away a win from one group of people, but I think wages just need to be higher. I think we should just raise base wages and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's also the issue of higher paid people getting moved to more of like a tip model to help save on taxes. Because I don't think the exemption happens until once you're making more than $160,000 a year, but there's other fuckery in there. And in the comments of these videos pointing out like genuine issues with the policy, people are talking about like, look at the Democrats just trying to come up with something wrong for something good. Oh my God,
nobody understands a downstream effect.
That's what I'm saying. Let's just think for a goddamn moment.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the no tax on tips things in a bit when we move over to the Senate. But yeah, it's like, it's fine. The concept isn't necessarily bad, but it's nothing compared to what it could be if we just raised wages and taxed the rich.
Yeah.
Like we know what the solution is. We've known for years what the solution is. It's just, it's another nonsense. It reminds me of a Democrat policy, quite honestly.
It does, yeah.
Like it's the kind of thing Democrats would pass to make it seem like they're doing something for the working class when they're not.
It goes away in 2029. Can't forget that too. It's a temporary virtue signal to give you crumbs.
It's another thing we'll have to like scramble to ensure it doesn't sunset, because then people's taxes will go up.
Yes.
If you even have a tipped job, or if you even like make enough to pay federal income tax on your tipped wages, whatever, man. What else we got to talk about for this budget? Anything before we move on to the Senate?
Yeah, actually, there is a couple more things.
Okay.
So we've been talking a lot about just like taxes and how much money maybe you're directly going to save, or maybe even lose in some instances when it comes to these things. And that's one angle to look at money. That's money going out. What about money coming in?
Green like money, yeah.
How you bring money in?
How do you bring money in?
Unlike a liberal, you get a job.
Absolutely.
Unlike a liberal, you get a job. And specifically for this portion, I guess, of the segment, I want to focus on what the bill does to basically almost fully repeal all of the green energy initiatives from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Job creation initiatives.
Job creation initiatives from the Inflation Reduction Act are just straight up just being repealed.
Yeah.
There was so much investment into green energy, both directly from the IRA and as a downstream effect of the IRA, because as you increase tax credits, more people are going to say, buy an EV because of the $7,500 tax credit. More people are going to look into solar because of those tax credits. That's going to increase demand. Suppliers want to meet supply. They're going to build more factories. There's going to be more investment in the sector, like in general, that will bring jobs to people.
Yeah.
A very important thing, something conservatives love to virtue signal about. So CNN did a little analysis, talked to a couple people, and reported that this bill, the current GOP budget, in its current form, could cost the United States more than 830,000 jobs that would otherwise have been created as a result of Biden's IRA.
Excellent. I love to see that,
We're taking away jobs from the American economy. Drum roll, please.
Yeah, Republicans always love to frame themselves as the job creators because they're willing to do the hard things like cut taxes. We got a Democrat policy that, tax credit's a tax cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't like it because they're scared of green energy.
I'm not going to say like green energy tax credits are like the best policy in the world.
No, they're not that good.
But like we say every episode, I gotta argue for things I wouldn't quite argue for in the ideal circumstance. Right now, I'm a neoliberal.
I'm left of center.
I am. I'll say it. I'll wear that badge proudly.
I'm standing among Joe Manchin at the moment.
In this current instance, I'm reading jobs reports. That's what's got to happen because that's what the moment demands.
It is.
830,000 jobs. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of jobs going away. And impacted jobs are mostly in like construction, manufacturing, building factories and components for electric vehicles, wind turbines, solar panels, batteries, and just other clean energy initiatives.
Blue collar industry.
Donald Trump is taking away construction jobs from you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And what really got me about reading this analysis is that they reported that Republican districts represent 14 of the 20 congressional districts that are on the cusp of gaining the most jobs from the law. Donald Trump is taking away jobs from Republican districts.
Damn near 1 million jobs.
Damn near 1 million jobs.
That's a big deal, brother.
From conservatives.
Yeah. At the same time, they're cutting these social programs and saying you need to get back to work. They're taking the jobs away.
Crazy.
It's just die.
Nobody wants to work anymore, brother. Nobody can work anymore.
It's the go die bill.
There was also another portion where it's like, yeah, obviously they're cutting the green energy stuff because they got to defeat like the woke new scam.
Oh, of course.
Or some shit like that. They're also speeding up permits for fossil fuel projects.
Yeah, they're like oddly negatively polarized against green energy projects generally, all because they just associate it with like AOC and the Green New Deal.
They associate like anything that has to do with green energy with being a blue-haired liberal from 2016.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they can't just like, I don't know, maintain the status quo. They have to actively go backwards.
Yeah,
and say, no, we're actually gonna burn coal for fun and warmth.
Like the tax credits are like a pro-corporation move.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. What are you doing?
It allows us, instead we're going to get rid of, I don't know, like electric heating and say we have to burn coal now.
Yeah, burn coal inside your home.
And then maybe we'll be a real country again.
Yeah, it's really bad. But I think that's the House budget.
That's the House budget right now.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating learning more about this budget over the weekend before the Monday mandate because, man, I can't imagine what's hidden in those 1,100 pages.
Yeah, stay tuned. We'll definitely have more to talk about, and we'll see if it passes in the Senate because that's sort of unclear right now. And that dynamic kind of plays into the next bit we have to talk about in terms of Capitol Hill, which is the Senate, the other half of Congress.
Bicameral legislature.
They did something.
They
passed a piece of legislation, and again, very Democrat coded piece of news right here.
God, yeah.
By a vote of 100-0, the Senate passed the No Tax on Tips Act of 2025. Senator Jackie Rosen of Arizona seemingly introduced this bill to, quote, avoid poison pills, suggesting to me that she does not think the budget in its current form is going to pass in the Senate. The budget, because the budget includes this policy.
Yeah, I also don't think that the budget is going to pass in its current form in the Senate, just because there are some GOP holdouts, and originally the Senate framework did not include any of the tax provisions.
Yeah.
But I mean, shit. I thought that maybe there was a chance it wasn't going to pass the House. So
yeah,
fuck me,
Yeah, we'll find out. But from the Guardian, quote, the bipartisan bill will create a tax deduction of up to $25,000 for cash tips reported to employers by workers for withholding purposes on payroll taxes, with a cap on the salary for eligible workers at $160,000 annually. The bill calls for the U.S. Department of Treasury to issue a list of occupations that traditionally receive tips within 90 days of the bill's enactment. So that's the sort of gist of the bill. My first question is, who's making $25,000 in tips on the year? Nobody, I think. That's crazy.
I genuinely, tipped worker minimum wage in Michigan is what?
Like $4, I think.
Is it $4?
Something like that.
Let's do the math real quick. What, 4 times 40, assuming you even get 40 hours a week, times 52, to assume you're working full-time on tipped wage, that's only $8,320 a year.
No. You get the tax deduction on the tips that you make.
No, I know.
Yeah.
So they're making the majority of their income from tips. So I think their tipped income would exceed that $25,000.
Oh, really?
Because that $25,000, assuming I did my math right, you $4 an hour. Oh, wait, times 40 hours, because you're working 40 hours. Most servers, I don't know, are working 40 hours a week. It's very much not a full-time thing.
Yeah.
Some servers end up being on Medicaid, which is getting cut because they work irregular hours, don't get full-time benefits, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. $4 an hour times 40 hours a week times 52 weeks in a year is $8,320 a year. You add $25,000 on top of that, plus 25,000, that gives you $33,000 a year. I know a lot of tipped workers are pulling in around 50. I don't know if that's because they're not being paid that $4 tip minimum wage, but it seems like the policy doesn't even go far enough to actually make a super substantial difference.
Interesting.
In tipped worker income.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
if you're making $33,000 a year, your tax burden already isn't that insane.
Yeah. Well, I got some stats in here. One from the Brookings Institute is that 37% of tipped workers already don't pay federal income tax because they don't make enough money.
Gas, okay.
So this really wouldn't matter for them at all.
Well, not gas, but
gas in the sense that it's what the hell is going on here?
Exactly. What's this policy doing?
Very few people make tipped wages anyways. Like you were saying before, there's a lot of low wage workers in retail or janitorial, whatever, that don't make tips but are still working similar hours that are working low wage jobs, and this gives them absolutely nothing. But also, again, the more life-changing policy here would be raising the tipped wage so it's on par with the minimum wage, and then raising the minimum wage.
Yes.
That's what would increase the amount of money that these people have.
Yeah, I wouldn't
minimum wage hasn't changed since 2009, by the way.
I wouldn't have to worry about wondering how much people make in tips, and maybe if it is above or under $25,000, if people were just paid for inconsistent wages. I feel like that's good. We also have to consider,
servers are still going to get tipped. It's an ingrained cultural thing in America.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So it's not like that would go away.
Nice.
But also, speaking of downstream effects to consider, this would likely mean an expansion of tip jobs, which means more low wage jobs because more people are losing access to the public programs that they depend on. So bad.
There's also a considerable overlap between people who rely on tips and would genuinely benefit from this policy, and people who are on Medicaid.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah, that's why the analysis of total resources that you have is very important, and this policy takes from the poor and gives to the rich. It's a wealth transfer at the end of the day. But I think that sums up the news we got out of Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and I just feel it's kind of just call me a political cynic. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm too deep into like party politics and being combative right now, but like, why introduce this right now?
I don't know, maybe Arizona, because that's where the senator's from. Maybe Arizona's got like a big tip to worker population. I have no idea.
I just, why not let the bill fail and then say, like, the broader budget bill fail and then say, oh, when they couldn't get it done, we got it done.
All of this is because Kamala Harris just had to steal the policy.
Oh, no, I know,
like,
yeah.
The overtime shit and the no tax on tip shit is just because Kamala Harris had to steal it. She literally just stole it from Donald Trump.
Once again, if Democrats believed in anything, we wouldn't be in this position.
Like, imagine it, just take me back to fucking whatever, September 2024.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's like, I want no tax on tips. And that's my working class policy. And she was like, I want to raise the minimum wage. I want to get rid of the tip to minimum wage. And I want everyone to be making $15 an hour. We could have it all.
I don't know. Biden ran on that and he won.
Well, then he didn't do it, though.
Yeah, but that's Joe Manchin's fault.
Yeah. Well, it's complicated. But I'm saying
it's very complicated. Well, yeah.
For the purposes of rhetoric, we could have it all.
Seems like it's a winning message if you ask me.
Yeah, that's Capitol Hill. Should we talk briefly about SCOTUS?
I think we could talk.
We could talk briefly about SCOTUS. I mean, the only major news here was it the Supreme Court that ruled this, or a district court?
I think it was the Supreme Court. Yeah, they basically, I think, ruled. I'm not sure if the ruling was like a definitive ruling or if they're just allowing it to happen while they consider like the broader case. But essentially, Trump is allowed to remove temporary protected status from, I think, 320,000 Venezuelan immigrants.
I'm seeing 350,000.
350,000.
Yeah, 350,000 Venezuelan immigrants.
Just because he wants to.
Yeah, it's not good. Some people are arguing, well, under the current law, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security has the power to do this. Like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. Well, and even if they should be able to like change the designation legally, this isn't a good thing to do morally.
No, yeah. Maybe, yeah, you're right. Exactly. There does need to be a distinction between like what's lawful and what's like the right thing to do. And I think there's a lot of problems when we look at the temporary protected status program and like what it does for the people who are given temporary protected status. And to say that it can just be taken away on a whim is to just completely erode any trust in the government program as a whole.
It also totally clogs the court system because all these people are going to be like, well, then I need to seek asylum.
Yes.
A court system that's already very strained with asylum seekers. As they say,
they constantly yap about.
And, it's not lost on me that this is a changing designation for Venezuelan migrants under temporary protected status because Donald Trump has been targeting Venezuelans specifically with all this talk about TDA running the Venezuelan government, sending people to CSOT and whatnot. When Trump's own I believe the National Intelligence Council produced a report a month ago that said there is no connection between TDA and Maduro's government in Venezuela other than some low-level contacts.
That's got to be evidence. They have to.
That's Tulsi Gabbard's National Intelligence Council.
They have to use that as evidence in the Fifth Circuit case. That has to be a piece of evidence in the Fifth Circuit Alien Enemies Act case right now that like completely throws out the Trump administration's claims. That's so genuinely damning that they are lying.
Yeah, I was reading up on it, and the Maduro government is like hostile to TDA. They did a raid on because TDA is like it was formed in some prison in Venezuela. They did a raid on that prison to go after members of TDA.
Doing a raid on a prison is crazy.
I think like a year ago, and like of course, Venezuela. I wouldn't want to live there. You know what I mean? But my point is that. The Venezuelan government has not been taken over by TDA. There is no invasion happening on the behest of the Venezuelan government through TDA as an organization. But that's the entire pretext for everything Donald Trump is doing against Venezuelan migrants. And now it's literally hundreds of thousands of people that work here, that have communities that they're a part of, that maybe have families here, that are going to be deported. And that's just unjustifiable morally to me. It's crazy.
Just like on a whim.
Yeah.
Like they were given temporary protected status under this program by the Biden administration, told that they could build their life here for X amount of years until maybe it expires and they need to do a thing. And then the rug was just pulled from underneath them. Yeah. And their lives are completely uprooted now. Like there should be a genuine morality.
Yeah.
That would stop someone from wanting to do such a thing.
And temporary protected status is the same program that was in contention when Trump accused Haitian migrants that came here into this program of eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, Trump has it out for temporary protected status for no reason, for no real reason. It's all just like propaganda. And I think it's evil and hateful, and they should be allowed to stay here. Exactly. I know it's called temporary protected status, but why can't they be here? They're doing nothing wrong, and they're fleeing political violence that we probably caused.
No, I'm saying because it's like, yeah, it's temporary protected status. Okay, they're like temporarily, like, I don't know, like citizens, kind of like half citizens for like the meantime. They get work authorizations.
They're legal residents.
They're allowed.
There's not even a path to citizenship through TPS.
They're allowed to live and work here. They're obviously contributing to the society around them. They're not mooching off government benefits. I feel like they've proved that they can behave themselves in the country. Why can't they stay? The only reason they couldn't stay is purely for, like, I feel like ideological reasons.
Yeah.
It's not like we're at fucking the United States' carrying capacity for the population. You don't have to worry about that right now. They're contributing. They're doing fine. They're not getting into trouble.
I think it'd be good to let them stay. Also, they're human beings.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They're people.
It is morally wrong to just uproot their lives and load them on a military plane and kick them out.
If anything, we're exploiting them because they come over with less legal protections. They're not citizens, right? They don't enjoy all the same rights the citizens have. And as we've seen now, they can be kicked out functionally whenever they want if Donald Trump tells Kristi Noem to take away the designation. It's just, it's bad, it's wrong, and I think we should treat them nice.
And, like, we shouldn't give Kristi Noem the trigger on that one.
Well, she takes her marching orders from Trump.
This is true.
I don't think she did it of her own accord. She'll do whatever he says. But also, she's stupid. So.
Precisely. Yeah, the airhead up there.
Doesn't know what habeas corpus is.
Oh, my goodness. It's her job to know that, too.
Yeah.
And it's also, like, the irony here of Trump allowing the white South Africans in.
Yep.
While,
oh, I forgot. I forgot to even put in the show notes that he ambushed the president of South Africa in
the
Oval Office.
Trump ambushing the South African president and just showing him pictures of, like, white guys that had been killed. And he's like, oh, this one, oh, this one, oh, this one's pretty bad. Was the most old man coded thing I think I've ever seen.
Dog, it's like when the anti-abortion people show up on college campuses.
Exactly.
Look at these aborted fetuses. You see what's happening?
Look at this and this one. It's like your grandpa's sitting there, like, making you, like, look at something from his youth. Like, oh, look at the glory days back here. Look at this one. Yeah, me and this one used to get up to some trouble. But it's white people he's saying are being genocided.
Yeah. And
it's ridiculous.
It's purely just because there's a lot of still very wealthy white South Africans that have his ear. Elon Musk included, of course.
Yeah, the wealthy white South African.
There's others that are still very wealthy because of the historical effects of apartheid in South Africa that have his ear. And also, he's a racist guy.
Yeah, it is. It's very true.
But yeah, it is. It's crazy that we're kicking out, hundreds of thousands of people that work here, that live here, that provide here, that contribute here. But we're letting in white South Africans under this pretext that there's a genocide when there's very obviously not. While we're also complicit in a genocide that's happening elsewhere.
I was just about to say, it's like, yeah, we're letting in the white South Africans who they claim are being, like, genocided while also accepting, like, golden beepers from Netanyahu. I don't know, man. While there's a literal starvation campaign happening in Gaza right now, I don't know, man. It seems like nothing's real anymore.
Well, I think Smotrich just said the other day, like, we're going to cleanse Gaza. He said we're going to destroy it entirely.
Yeah.
That was a quote.
There was the one guy that said something along the lines of, even, like, Palestinian babies are the enemy. Or some shit like that.
Yeah. I think he was, I don't think he's in the government. He does something else. Maybe he's like a journalist or something, a journalist, quote unquote.
Journalist is crazy.
But yeah, he said, like, Palestinian babies are enemies too. It's absurd. Just like villains, dude. Absolute villains. But lastly here, as a sort of, as our way of signing off, we can talk about Biden being old.
We can't talk about Biden being old.
The fact that bro saved this all for a book. It's crazy.
That was, like, initially my opinion of it is when I first hear about Original Sin, Fake Yapper's book about, like, Biden's decline and, like, what was hidden from us, I thought, aren't you hiding it from us too? Aren't you, like, actively hiding this from us too?
What do you mean I got to pay $30 for your book?
Like, you're a journalist. Shouldn't you be, like, telling me this shit anyway? But from what he's saying that 99% of the interviews happened after the election. I don't know if I believe him, but, like, if that is the case, then it's a little more okay in my mind that you saved this information. Because, like, after the election happens, things are just kind of done and over. The news isn't, like, exactly relevant to any actionable information that voters could, like, act on. And there's this there's little excerpt that I got from like a news article talking about the story that said 11 minutes into the June 27th presidential debate, CNN anchor Dana Bash slipped a note to her colleague Jake Tapper after President Biden gave a rambling, incoherent answer. He just lost the election, she wrote. And then, which is very true. That's actually literally true.
That's what I was thinking too on our live stream.
I think Jake went on to say like 3 weeks later he was then inspired to like actually start thinking about this and looking at like the reporting going on. And throughout the article, there's just this kind of theme of Jake Tapper being like, yeah, and any source you like asked was saying that Biden was completely fine and we believed him.
It's just like, okay, we obviously covered the Biden administration and Biden's decline. But the difference is that, like, we have no access to literally anybody. And we criticize Biden for being too old. I mean, Biden had said that he had been showing his age for a while. I just didn't think it possible for him to, like, drop out and somebody else do it. Given the time that we had left in the election until like, after the debate.
We defended Biden in some aspects against, like, the conservative mental acuity attacks because, like, we're tertiary sources. Mm-hmm. For all the information that we had, it didn't seem like it was like that bad. It seemed like he was like doing like at least like an okay enough job until the debate.
Yeah, no, the debate was
and that's really when everything fell apart.
Bad. But my point is that like Jake Tapper's got infinitely more access than little old boys over here.
He could have pressed.
Jake Tapper should have known ahead of time. And the fact that he didn't and the people close to Biden continued or like encouraged him to keep going, knowing exactly what they knew about his like mental state. Is like you should be put into prison for that.
Like there are so many people that were complicit in what genuinely like this cover up. It's like it's insane. I think there's another portion that I saw that talks about how like Joe Biden at a fundraiser forgot who like George Clooney was.
Yeah,
just didn't know who he was. And I know that doesn't sound that crazy, but George Clooney is like a mega donor.
Yeah,
he's like a DNC mega donor. He organizes hella fundraisers for them. Like he is a person.
He's also been famous forever.
Other than being the actor George Clooney of Ocean's 11 fame and various other movies, if you're a Democrat, you ought to know who he is. If you're like a high-profile Democrat, he probably raised a hell of money for you. And there's other stories of him like just telling the same story over and over again, just not being with it. I think I read one portion where it said aides were considering wheeling him around in a wheelchair in his second term, and it's like that's crazy. It's not crazy because it's funny that somebody's in a wheelchair, but it's crazy because it's just like they should have been honest about this shit.
Yeah, if you're at that point, then maybe he just shouldn't run again.
Yeah, and what was it? Like the oh god, I can't remember their names anymore, but like there are people going on these like podcasts just vehemently defending Biden's choice to run. Biden himself still defends his choice to run. He had too many yes men around him. Whatever people think that George Lucas had when it came to the prequels concerning like yes men and people who never told him yo is what Joe Biden had like times a billion.
Oh my god. And
it's ridiculous.
And it was bad for the fucking country.
And like all of these journalists, none of them was able to like get a scoop. Like you're telling me like the lid on this was so tight throughout so many people, so many staffers, so many aides, so many people Joe Biden interacted with that like nobody leaked it. And the rare times where like a report did come out, journalists, including Jake Tapper, bashed like what was it like the Wall Street Journal or the Washington? I think the Wall Street Journal came out with a thing, the initial report talking about Biden's mental acuity, and he's like, "Yeah, I didn't fuck with that at the time because all my sources were telling me it was bad." And it's like,
but like people had been calling out Biden's like mental fitness since the primaries in 2020.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And again, like there's your expectations can only be so high when it's people that don't have access to like these high level figures and whatnot. But Fake Yapper does. Fake Yapper he could get anybody at any time on his show whenever he wants. And the fact that he couldn't discern the truth and instead is now writing a book which he's profiting off of is like slimy, like in my opinion.
Yeah, you can't tell me Jake Tapper couldn't go up and press an aide. You know what I mean? You couldn't tell me he could like...
If he cared.
If he cared, he could go up, he could hear these reports, he could think, I'm going to be a real journalist, and I'm going to go talk to some staffers and give them anonymity, and then I'm going to report it on my show. But there's also this greater media, I guess, like atmosphere that was willing to be kind of complicit in the cover-up, that even though they weren't actively covering up, they're willing to be complicit in not questioning things.
Yeah.
Which isn't what a journalist should do.
It's not what a journalist should do. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Gulag for them.
Gulag for them for sure. Yeah. When I'm president one day.
Put him in the stretching rack, you know what I'm saying?
It's rent controls and it's gulag for CNN. Although I do cite them sometimes. They do good written things.
But I don't be citing fake yapper.
No.
Do not be citing fake yapper. But that's our show for this week, folks.
That is.
And if you enjoyed the show and you're not a patron already, maybe go become one.
Maybe go check it out. You know, if more budget bill information comes out for the Friday freeloaders on Friday and this show becomes outdated, you know what you could have done to fix that.
Wouldn't that be tragic, like 24 hours
I wouldn't even be surprised at this point. Like, with the rate that everything's going, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some just poison pill in the bill that completely invalidates all the good things that are good and makes the bad things worse. If there was some hidden provision that means actually work requirements kicked in last year and you got to pay back everything that you got from Medicaid.
We're retroactively applying work requirements.
Maybe. I don't know.
If you got Medicaid in 2024 and you weren't working, you got to pay that money back.
Well, hell yeah.
Now your medical debt.
It's also not lost on me, and I forget to mention this when we were talking about it, but like, have we talked about how Georgia implemented work requirements or tried to implement work requirements, and the like administrative costs ended up being more than like they saved from kicking people off?
Yeah.
That's absolutely a situation that we could be staring down, along with them just cutting the amount of money that they give to states.
Well, yeah, because we're imposing them nationwide.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to cost... I don't obviously have an estimate, but it's going to probably cost like hundreds of billions of dollars to apply this, and it would just be cheaper to give everyone Medicaid.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'll let the professionals come to that conclusion. I'll just tell you what the conclusion will be before they announce it.
I've got crazy foresight.
I've got that ability. I can do that.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed the show, support on various social medias and platforms. You already know what we have to do here. And we also have to give a special thanks.
We do. We have to give a special thanks to the people who keep these two lights on in the studio
Absolutely.
right here. Special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord the Tau, the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton the Fed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Taro, Tari, Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mouveri, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muggsy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsford, Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird, Titty, Crawfishing, Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Carlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Alani Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, In Hope of Giants, AK Gon, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valinic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes,
August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Particulon, Memfrez, Lauren, Uncraftsmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kasaya, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Feta Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Anaya, Cryo Bongi, Sergeant Pookie, Connor Nix, Jordan T, Hoodie, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Kristen, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Daniel Stock, Noah Sahas, Maja What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6-inch Heels, Luke Wechter, Henry Kraggles, Tristan Ringsmith, Yaya, Hannah Attig, Asura the Atheist, Aiden Reese, Deep State Agent, and my mom. Thank you all so much.
So much.
For supporting the show on Patreon. We love you.
I hope you have an amazing weekend.
Agreed.